You're such an asshole.
AssholeConsulting.com. We are banging that out here. Hey, Captain Asshole. How much for a Clarey test video request comparing Fred Rogers versus Pablo Escobar? And Fred Rogers, I'm like, why do I know that name? That's Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers. So, and then Pablo Escobar, I think both are deceased. But I was very curious about this, so I gave this person a little bit of a discount. So let us take a look at Fred Rogers. Wikipedia. How did he... Born 1928, died 2003. Yeah, 74. Stomach cancer, too bad. Anyway, the Clarey test is a 4-question test that we use to find out whether or not you ought to vote for somebody on a we apply it to politicians. But I also found it a good litmus test as to whether or not you should trust somebody, period. And the 4-question test is, do you come from money? If you do, you get a point. You don't want points on this test. Did you major in stupid shit? If you did, you get a point. Do you have no real-world working experience, like, say, you're a career politician, Nancy Pelosi, a professor, a nonprofit, a teacher? You get a point. And then, what are you doing now? Are you actually working? You could be retired. And that's fine. But if you're like, I sit as the Vice Reserve Diversity Director for a CSR, but yep, fuck you. You get a point, you worthless fucking piece of shit. So, Fred McFeely Rogers, 1928 to 2003, American television personality for creating, hosting, and composing the musical theme The Educational Preschool. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood from 1968 to 2001. Holy cow. Which featured his kind-hearted, gentle, soft-spoken personality and directness to his audiences. All right, let's go to personal life. Born in Pennsylvania to James and Nancy Rogers. He had one sister, and in early life he spent much of his free time with his maternal grandmother, Mr. Fred McFeely, who had an interest in music. He often sang along as he played the piano. Rogers graduated from high school in 1946. He started at Dartmouth, earning a B.A. musical composition in 1951. All right, so he gets a worthless degree. Then he went on to theology, 1963. And so here's the question. It's like, okay, do we apply today's worthless degrees to people who went to college back in the 40s? It does not apply because back in the 40s, anyone who went to college was kind of like a step up. It wasn't like everyone today who breathes oxygen, they go to college. So back then, if you went to college, you can't slight him on that. So I'm going to give him a pass. The other thing is he actually did become a pastor and then went on to do something with his career. In other words, it's not like, I studied theater to dodge the draft. It wasn't like that. So we're not going to give him a point. Don't know if he made a lot of money. Let's take a look. Sister Elaine, right, Fred Rogers. Apartment in New York City, had a summer home in Nantucket. Was red-green colorblind, swam every morning and neither smoked nor drank. Vegetarian on ethical grounds, saying, I don't want to eat anything that has a mother. The guy was actually himself, he never served in the military, blah, blah, blah. Early work. Life-changing moment, he saw television in his parents' home. He entered seminary after college, but after his first experience as a viewer, he wanted to explore the potential of the medium. He would have made a great podcast pastor. In an interview with CNN in his later years, Rogers stated, I went into television because I hated it so, and I thought there's some way to use this fabulous instrument to nurture those who would watch and listen. God almighty. Like, he really was a good guy. Worked in puppeteer. Worked with host. Okay, so I'm going to assume he didn't come from wealth, so he doesn't get a point. He majored in stupid shit, but he actually went and did something with it, and on top of that, goes back to the 1940s, so he doesn't get a point. He worked. You may say, Mr. Rogers isn't really... it takes effort. That takes time, and he was in television and radio. He doesn't get a point, and he worked almost till he was dead. He worked 2 years before he died. Mr. Rogers gets 0 points. That's the perfect score. Mr. Rogers gets 0 points. Right, Pablo Escobar. Well, he didn't live too long. Pablo Escobar. He's smiling. because he knew he'd get out of jail. All right, Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria, born 1949, died 1993. So what, 30, 40, not even 40, 50, 44 years old, was a Colombian drug lord and narco-terrorist. His cartel supplied an estimated 80% of the cocaine smuggled into the United States at the height of his career, turning over $21.9 billion a year in personal income. That's his income. That's not his net worth. That was his income. He was often called the king of cocaine and was the wealthiest criminal in history, with an estimated known net worth of $30 billion in the early 90s, equivalent to $55 billion today. Well, how is that possible? If you had $21 billion in income, make him one of the richest men in the world at his prime. Escobar was born in Rio Negro, Colombia, and grew up nearby Medellin. He studied briefly at Universidad Autónoma in Latin America of Medellin, but left without a degree. He began to engage in criminal activity that involved selling contraband cigarettes and fake lottery tickets, and he participated in motor vehicle theft. I'm going to give him more credit than someone majoring in the liberal arts. I actually will, because that actually takes risk. In the 1970s, he began to work for various contraband smugglers, often kidnapping and holding people for ransom, before beginning to distribute powder cocaine himself, as well as establishing the first smuggling routes in the United States in 1975. His infiltration to the drug market of the U.S. expanded exponentially due to rising demand for cocaine, and by the 1980s, it was estimated that about 70 to 80 tons of cocaine were being shipped from Colombia to the U.S. on a monthly basis. His drug network was commonly known as the Medellin Cartel, which often competed with rival cartels domestically and abroad, resulting in massacres and the murders of police officers, judges, locals, and prominent politicians. In 1982, Escobar was elected as an alternate member of the Chamber of Representatives of Colombia as part of the liberal alternative movement. Through this, he was responsible for the construction of houses and football fields in Western Colombia. It's amazing how all these drug dealers always go and help out kids. Like, they always... It's amazing. They're not just like these rank evil people. And I know it could have been a skit. It could have been a thing. But there was another guy. One of these... who was it? Like... they did actually... They're not... You look at these American mafioso cartel people. You know, what's his name? Luca Luciano, we did him. And then Al Capone. And these guys were all... there was another mafia guy. They're all honest, except they just committed crime. That's all. Which gained notable popularity among the locals of the towns that he frequented. However, Colombia became the murder capital of the world, and Escobar was vilified by the Colombian and American governments. In 1993, Escobar was shot and killed in his hometown by Colombian National Police one day after his 44th birthday. All right, early life. He was third of 7 children to Abel de Jesus Dari Escobar, a farmer, and Hermilda Gaviria, elementary school teacher. All right, so they don't make a lot of money. He brought up poor. Greystone saying, no, he's just all right. And they go right into his criminal career. So he did go to school ever so temporarily. If you don't get a degree, you don't get a point, because it's better not to go to school than to go to school for a worthless degree. Does he have real-world experience? Yes, he does. It may be illegal, it may be unethical, you may not like it, but him supplying the United States with $21.9 billion a year in cocaine required a little bit of intelligence and entrepreneurial hustle, not to mention to avoid the authorities. What did he do? He worked until he was dead. He also gets a perfect score, so no worthless degree, came from poverty, worked in the private sector, worked until he was dead. Again, who would you like to have a beer with? Mr. Rogers, Pablo Escobar, or Nancy Pelosi? Tell me, really, honestly, who would you rather talk to? I'd rather talk to Pablo Escobar any day over Barack Obama, Mark Dayton, Nancy Pelosi, or any one of these fucking lip-dick pains in the ass pussies who had mommy and daddy just shoved money up their asses. So yep, Pablo Escobar, look at him, he's smiling. Probably evil, probably a sociopath, I know, but it'd be curious to go and research this guy a little bit more. Anyway, that's it. That's the Clarey test. Both perfect scores, Mr. Rogers, and Pablo Escobar. We'll see you guys later. Toodles.